Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Township of Frontenac's regular council meeting for April the 28th. First item is the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Good, seconded by Councillor Regent. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda dated April 28, 2023 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing or hearing none, moving on. No business profile. So we have a presentation. We have Travis Merkley from MPAC with us. Travis, the floor is yours.
Good morning again. Again, I'm Travis Merkley. I'm an account manager with Municipal and Stakeholder Relations. I'm located in the Kingston field office, and I service the City of Kingston, Frontenac, and Lennox and Addington counties. First, I'd like to take a moment to congratulate fellow council members on the recent elections. I look forward to working with you for 2023 and beyond. So today's presentation will be a high-level overview of MPAC and the property assessment system in Ontario. So if there's any topics within the presentation today that council feels they'd like more information on, let me know. We can do another meeting, or I can get that information to you later. Next slide, please. So at MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario worth a combined value of $3 trillion. In the past year, Ontario has grown by approximately 45,000 new residential homes, and in 2022, we added more than $37 billion in new assessment. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and these assessments generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue annually. Next slide, please. So there are 4 key players in Ontario's property tax system, and they all have a different role and they have interest in the process. First is the provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation, as well as policies. They also determine the educational tax rate. There is also an independent body that adjudicates assessment appeals, which is the Assessment Review Board that also falls under the province. Next is MPAC. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by Ontario's municipalities. MPAC's role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set out by the Ontario government. We are accountable to the province, municipalities, and property taxpayers through a board of directors that are comprised of municipal, provincial, and taxpayer representatives appointed by the Ministry of Finance. Next is the municipalities. Municipalities determine their budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services, such as police, fire, roads, sidewalks, public transit, waste management, and municipal facilities. Municipalities also use MPAC's assessments and the established tax rate to distribute their tax requirements to property owners. And finally, your property owners, who pay the property taxes, as well as set the market through property purchase and sale. Next slide, please. So, as you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that our municipal records are accurate when municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's property database includes inspecting and assessing new constructions, additions, and renovations promptly, responding to any property owner inquiries and working with them to help them understand their assessment, and also supporting municipalities through ongoing support and regular meetings, offering Municipal Connect, which is where municipal stakeholders can obtain primary source of assessment-related information, and working collaboratively on projects that are important to you, such as digital permitting. We also have important statutory duties, such as handling requests for reconsiderations, and maintaining people data by tracking school support for over 5.5 million properties. Next slide, please. So monitoring the market of and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day and every year to keep our property data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislative valuation date, which we call an assessment update or reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent assessment update, which took place in 2017, was January 1st, 2016. This is when we determine what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at a particular point in time. Regular revaluations of properties ensure that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar amount of property tax. It is important to note that provincial government determines when MPAC conducts each province-wide assessment update and sets the valuation date for each cycle. Next slide. So Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. To do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date, as I noted on the previous slide. This principle is called current value assessment. This is the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after an appropriate exposure on the open market. Next slide. This is probably the one that everyone's really looking forward to hear about. So we were scheduled to conduct an assessment update in 2020 that would have taken effect for 2021, but we all know what happened. The COVID-19 came and the provincial government postponed it. This was done to provide stability and certainty to taxpayers and to enable municipalities to focus on responding to the challenges posed by COVID-19. As a result, all property assessments in Ontario are still based on the January 1st, 2016 valuation date, as they have been since 2017. Although the assessment update remains paused, our work continues to keep property data up to date. Property owners will still receive an assessment notice if MPAC has made any changes to their property. In November, MPAC sent out over 800,000 notices to reflect changes to property. But once the provincial government does announce when the next assessment update will take place, we will, and when that valuation date is, we'll make sure that we will share that with you and work to have meaningful conversations with you to finalize the assessment values within your community. Next slide, please. This slide explains what happens when there is an assessment update. It shows the link between a chosen valuation date, the mailing of MPAC's assessment notice, and the phase-in, which is bringing the new assessment value into effect over a legislative period of time. The phase-in program was introduced by the provincial government to provide an additional level of property tax stability and predictability. So when properties experience a market increase between assessment updates, the increase is gradually phased in over 4 years. Assessment decreases are applied within the first year of the cycle. Next slide. So let's briefly talk about valuation. We have 3 industry-wide approaches to valuing properties. First approach is the direct comparison approach. It's the valuation approach used primarily for your residential type properties, your vacant land. And in this approach, recent open market sales of comparable properties are analyzed to provide an indication of value of properties are assessed through this approach. So there's 5 major factors that provide 85% of the value, which is your location, your lot size, quality of construction, square footage, and age. Next is your income approach, which is primarily used for your industrial mall type properties, your large medical dental buildings, office buildings, shopping centers, etc. The ability to earn revenue is tied to the real estate and not the business that may rent from the location. To clarify, it's not the revenue being generated by the occupant, but rather the rent the occupant is paying the landlord. This method requires a detailed analysis of income and expenses, both for the property being valued and for other similar properties, to determine how much income a property might expect it to generate if sold on the open market. The last of these approaches is the cost approach. This approach is used when a property is unique and rarely sold in the open market. And you can't rely on either the direct comparison or the income approach to value these type of properties. The cost approach is a three-step process. First, we calculate the cost of replacing the building. Then we deduct for any depreciation for age, and then we apply the value, and that's how we come up with the cost approach. Next slide, please. So what draws our attention to a property? It's typically one of the following things: a market sale, a request from a property owner or municipality, building permit activity, or a request for reconsideration or appeal. So our role is to take building permits and plans and turn them into assessment. Our municipal stakeholders rely on MPAC's assessments to levy property tax. The sooner the MPAC can deliver on new assessment, the sooner our municipal stakeholders can realize new revenue. Every year, MPAC processes an average 300,000 building permits for new developments and renovations. Next. So after we assess a property or change an assessment, we mail a property assessment notice. Sometimes property owners don't agree with their assessment value. A property owner might connect with one of you, saying that they disagree with their assessment. It is important to remember that property assessments are not taxation. So if you do get an inquiry, you can help us by asking a few quick questions. If they could have sold their property on the January 1st valuation date for the assessment value, if they had visited About My Property to review comparable properties, if they still disagree with their assessment value, they have the option to file a request for reconsideration, and this is free of charge. There's also an ability to file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board. The fastest way to start this review is by filing a request for reconsideration on About My Property, but property owners can still file the request for reconsideration on MPAC.ca. Next slide, please. Well, let's take a moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. Assessment distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes being paid. When a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much your assessed value of the property has changed, but rather how much the assessment value has changed relative to the average change in the class in the community. This concept has been explained in a recent MPAC toolkit that we delivered, and I'll discuss that toolkit on the next slide. So, with anticipation of the next province-wide assessment update, we have implemented a strategy to address the misconceptions about the relationship between assessed value and taxation, including resources for municipalities that will ensure that an announcement is made that this will help support you in explaining the differences. So the digital toolkit, which is available on MPAC.ca, can help municipalities, including elected officials, mitigate misinformation and provide support and resources to educate and inform property owners. In the digital toolkit, you will find a new video, How Your Property Taxes Are Calculated. This video provides clarity for property owners on how taxes are calculated, including that link between property assessment, property assessment, municipal service costs, and required property taxes. As a reminder, as shown on the myth versus fact infographic, an increase in a home's assessed value doesn't necessarily equate to an increase in taxes. If the municipality's operating budget doesn't change, but the assessment base doubles, then essentially the tax rate would decrease. So I do encourage, if time permits, to take a look at the resources that are available on MPAC.ca, and these resources can be shared on your social media platforms. Next slide, please. So this is getting to the end of my presentation. I just want to thank everyone for allowing me some time to present to you. We do want to stay connected with you. We do have a monthly newsletter. It's In Touch, which you can sign up for if you aren't already through MPAC.ca. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a number of library of resources that are available to you. And last slide is just my contact information, and as well as the regional manager for this area, which is Tracy McIntyre. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you for the presentation, Travis. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Given that the assessment is based on a 2016 valuation, when a new property comes to your attention, how do you value it according to what you think it would have sold for in 2016 or what it would sell for now? Because, I mean, there's been a lot of change in the market. It seems to me new construction gets penalized relative to the existing assessment, and new homeowners are going to pay too much money on the tax base.
So you had your first opinion there is it is based on the January 1st, 2016 market, and we're estimating what it would be worth at that time.
How do you do that?
How do we do it? Well, I mean, those are the sales that we're working on. So if you have new properties that have sold around that time, that are built around that time, then those are the assessments we're looking at. So, I mean, whether it's a 2023 built and a 2016 built, they're still going to be assessed around the same amount, but based on what those type of properties were selling for in 2016.
Can I ask one follow-up? Do you have any information from the province about when a new valuation date might happen?
I wish I did. That is a question that we continuously get, and we want to do an assessment update, right? And if it was up to us, it would have already been done, right? But we're waiting on them to make a decision on when that will be. And of course, when they do make that decision, we'll be ready because we're constantly out there doing sales investigations to prepare for whatever the valuation date is.
Anyone else? Councillor Fowler.
Yes, I have a property that one of your fellows came by and he had a tape measure on a new addition, and I guess that's why he was there. And I asked him a couple questions and about my property, and he said, you know, you got a basement and everything, and actually I didn't. I guess a basement would change the value of the property.
Yeah.
So I think he corrected that there and then, but because I brought him in and showed him around, there was no basement or anything. But I mean, sometimes you don't have proper description of the property, and it's okay if we notify you and update the description.
Yeah, so I mean, you have the option to, like, there's a legislative deadline where you can file a request for reconsideration, and that's a free of charge review of your property. So if you went on to About My Property and you noticed that you had the basement assessed and that indicated it shouldn't be, and you're getting valued for that, you'd have the ability to file a request for reconsideration. Now that deadline has passed, but you could still call in and have us correct it for the following year.
So when that happens, what's the backlog, or if someone files an appeal? So
what happens is let's take the example of the basement being assessed and it shouldn't have been. So what would happen is we'd review the property, and if that was the only issue that we found, is we'd remove the value of the basement and we would send it what we call minutes of settlement. And you'd have the option to either accept those minutes of settlement or reject them. And then if you reject them as the residential property owner, then you can then file an assessment, an appeal with the assessment review board. Now, if you accepted them, you sign them, send them back to us, and then we send them off to the municipality to process.
Okay, so that wasn't quite the question.
Okay, sorry.
All right, well, thank you for that. But anyway, so someone wants to file an appeal on their assessment. So that you go through all the proper procedures. When can they reasonably expect Impact to get back to them with a response? We're talking 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months.
So we internally 90 days is what we're saying, but right now, being that it's like 7th year of the assessment cycle, that we don't have as many backlogs, so it's typically it's faster. I can't give you a specific time, but generally they're faster enough. We just don't have as many to process, but we want to process them within 90 days. That's what our mandate is. So if you send an RFR in to us, and we love our acronyms, request for reconsideration, 90 days is what we'd like to respond to. But then you get your decision in the mail.
Councillor Hermer.
If the assessment date is set for, say, 2020, is Impact going to make any adjustment because of the unrealistic values that were put on properties due to COVID?
So basically, if they decide 2020, I mean, I think those would be for the most part, pre-COVID. But I mean, how we would come up with our assessment, whatever date they come up with, we're going to use sales in around that valuation date. That would be what we would use to determine the assessment values for all properties. It's whatever, if they pick January 1st, 2020, if they pick January 1st, 2023, January 1st, 2022, whatever they decide is the valuation date, we're going to use the sales in around that time frame to come up with our assessment. Right, so we do the assessment part, obviously, right? And then after that, that's where your tax rates come in, your budgetary requirements come in too. So, so if everything is going up at the same rate, then and your budgets don't change, essentially your tax rate is decreased.
Anyone else?
If anything else does come up, guys, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Travis. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Moved by Councillor Good, second by Councillor Regent. Be resolved that Council receives for information the presentation from Travis Merkley, Account Manager from MPAC, regarding property assessment in Ontario, and thanks him for his time spent today.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. We have no delegations. Adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be resolved that Council adopts the minutes as circulated of a public meeting of Council held April 6, 2023, and a regular meeting of Council held April 6, 2023.
Any comments or questions? In favor? Carried. Okay, business arising out of the minutes?
Moved by Councillor Good, second by Councillor Regent, whereas Council passed Resolution 172-23, receiving a letter from the Bank of Montreal advising of the closure of the Northbrook branch. Whereas Council sent a letter to the Bank of Montreal advising Council condemns the closure of the Northbrook branch and expressing their concern. Now therefore be resolved that Council receives a letter from the Bank of Montreal advising they have received the letter and welcome Council members to attend the public meeting on May 31st to discuss these concerns.
Comments? Councillor Hermer.
Well, I heard from a very reliable source that this is a done deal. There won't even be an ATM machine left there.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Roy.
Sorry, that's okay. Is anyone going to that meeting on the 31st? You are?
Okay. I think I'll go to. At the last council meeting, one of the directions was for me to talk to John Jordan, the local MPP, and we had a meeting with other townships, and our CAO was there as well, and we raised this issue with him. And he had been involved when Scotiabank pulled their branch out of the town of Lanark. And he said, basically, you might as well just forget about it. He says, you can always try, but even the feds can't tell a bank what to do because they're private entities. They can do whatever they want to do. And he says, you know, Lanark was fortunate to be able to get a bank machine. But other than that, he says, I will mention it to Scott Reid, the federal MP for us. But he says, you know, it's a long road and very difficult to do. Councillor Hermer.
Well, I understand there's about 2,500 separate personal bank accounts and over 300 businesses deal with Northbrook. And that is all going to be transferred to Tweed. And the bank, they weren't even going to allow any additional staff in Tweed to handle the overload. They finally agreed to transferring one member to Tweed. So I think it's a lost cause.
It's like Yogi Bear. It's not over till it's over, right? But yes. Anybody else? So we'll see what happens. And, you know, for those of us who can be there on the 31st, I think it would be good. Although I would expect the hall will be filled overflowing. So. Okay, so in favor? Carried. Clerk's administrative report, communications aid.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that Council receives for information Section A items of the Clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Comments? Questions? In favor? Carried. The Cloyne Big Chair Project.
Moved by Councillor Good, seconded by Councillor Regent. Be it resolved that Council receives for information an email dated May 30th, 2023 from Tammy Whitelock, organizer of the Cloyne Big Chair Project, advising they would like to donate a new big chair to be placed on the township property by the Pioneer Museum. And the Council accepts the donation of a new big chair and is agreeable to the big chair being placed on township property near the Cloyne Pioneer Museum and instructs the manager of community development to work with the volunteer group for a suitable location. The Council directs the manager of community development to send a thank you letter to Tammy Whitelock and the group of volunteers organizing the new build and donation.
Any comments? Deputy Mayor.
I've seen a big chair there for years until recently. Could one of the councillors from Ward 1 give us a very brief history of how that started, where it was, and so on?
So the original big chair was up at Shell, and it's been there a long time. It's taken a beating over the years, and then the Direcco really gave it a beating last year. It's completely fallen apart. It has not been fixed. A couple of boards maybe. It looks horrible. And so I guess because this chair, I think I remember that chair being there when we were teenagers. A few people in the community decided to get together and build a new one. So Tammy kind of took on the lead for that. And then she's got a couple of people that are helping her with the design and the build of the chair. The community is uber excited about it. And they'd like to put it at the Pioneer Museum, right sort of beside I guess there's a map there, a sign of some sort with a map. They'd like to put it right there so people can continue to stop with their kids and take pictures and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
I think there's a description of the chair and the whole process in the front that they haven't done a bad job with, so you can read that. Anyway, any further comments? In favor? Carried. Okay, Mary Ann Ward, President, requests for an exemption from the noise bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that Council receives for information an email dated April 19th, 2023 from Mary Ann Ward advising they will be hosting a wedding reception on September 30th, 2023 on North Shore Road and requesting an exemption from the noise bylaw 6521, section 3.3G, which restricts excessive noise and the disturbance of any person because of sound from an instrument or radio or loud parties between 12 o'clock a.m. and 7 o'clock a.m. that is clearly audible at neighboring premises or residential properties. And the council approves the exemption to the noise bylaw to permit the wedding to continue until 1 o'clock a.m. on October 1st, 2023. And the council instructs the clerk to provide a copy of this resolution to the requester and the township's bylaw enforcement officer.
Questions, comments? Mr. Good. Do that again.
What happens if there is a complaint comes in? Like, are the neighbors informed that there's been an exemption to the noise bylaw? And if so, like, how close are they? I don't know where this place is.
Go ahead, Karen.
So in the past, when we've had these requests, we haven't notified the neighbors, but I can, if council wants me to, and if you just give me like an idea of how far, to let them know, I can do that.
Well, noise will carry across the water too, right? That's the problem. But it does say that requesting the clerk to notify the bylaw enforcement officer. So we're talking about an hour or so. Thing within that time, the bylaw officer can say, "Well, no, they have an hour extension." Councilor Hermer.
We've approved a similar application in the past.
I'm not suggesting we don't approve it. I just had that question.
Reasonable. Councilor Hoodle.
Most of the neighbors in the area are aware of this wedding.
I just do a walking tour and tell your neighbors, come on over for a drink, and that'll take care of most of it. Any other questions, comments? In favor? Carried. Clerk, planning manager, consideration of a joint integrity commissioner services.
So moved by Councillor Good, second by Councillor Regent. Be resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Consideration of a Joint Integrity Commissioner Services, and the council approves of a joint request for proposal for an integrity commissioner and instructs the clerk to provide an update to council at a future council meeting.
Comments? In favor? Opposed? Carried. Cemetery Interment Service Agreement, 1-year extension.
Moved by Councillor Good, second by Councillor Regent. Be resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Cemetery Interment Service Agreement 1-year extension. And the council approves extending the agreement with Bowles Maintenance until March 31st, 2024, at which time a request for quotation will be advertised. And the council instructs the clerk to provide notice of a public meeting and the intent to pass a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw Schedule G, cemeteries, to remove the fees for interments and disinterments, and include invoicing subject to contractor pricing at a later date.
Questions? Councillor Hoodle.
So I'm just wondering, with the original agreement, was there an option to extend it for 1 year?
So it wasn't written into the contract, and just due to timing, and in the fact that last time we didn't get anyone else bid on the contract, we had looked at just extending it for a year to give us some more time.
So this is strictly a benefit for us.
Just this particular contract, there's some expertise and knowledge of the cemeteries that is beneficial with Bowles continuing. And like I said, nobody else bid the last time.
Thanks. Mr. Hoodle.
I'm just questioning what you mean by timing for us.
Because the contract ended March 31st and we have interments that are happening right now. So we do need someone to do it.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm just aware of a slight thread here. I'm sure Bowles is providing a wonderful and experienced service, but with only one person interested, they're kind of free to set prices. Do you expect, Kelly, that there will be a 1-year extension next year at this time?
So our resolution said that we will retender it. So we'll do it in January of next year. If they're the only ones that bid, we could see increases, but
I would guess that they will be the only bidder.
we're starting to see more businesses popping up all the time, actually, in different aspects. So time will tell.
And the new contract that we're going out for tender for will be how long? Like 3 years?
We usually try to do them, these ones specifically, like term of council. So it'd probably be a 3-year.
Thank you. Okay. In favor? Opposed? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Clerk Planning Manager's administrative report entitled Assumption of Roads, River Road, Strathaddam Road, and Cruz Road. And the Council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to dedicate and assume as roads the following. Parts 2 and 3 on Registered Plan 13R 22741, part of Lot 22, Concession 2, Township of Palmerston, and Part 6 on Registered Plan 13R 22684, Lot 29, Concession 9, Township of Palmerston. The Council instructs the clerk to have the municipal solicitor register the bylaw.
Comments? In favor? Carried. License agreement application, use of Township Shoreline Road allowance, Marble Lake.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Clerk Planning Manager's administrative report entitled License Agreement Application for Use of Township Shoreline Road Allowance, Marble Lake Lodge Resort. And the Council instructs the clerk to advise Marble Lake Lodge Resort. The Council approves of the request to have 2 docks on the Shoreline Road Allowance on Marble Lake, provided a license agreement is entered into before the docks are reinstalled. The Council authorizes the Mayor and Clerk to sign the license agreement once Marble Lake Lodge Resort signs the agreement and provides a certificate of insurance.
Are there any comments about this? Deputy Mayor.
These docks have been in place, I would guess, for quite a number of years and have been used by local renters. So this involves a new cost, small perhaps, for the property owner. It just seems like it's part of the process of tightening up legislation and getting tougher and tougher with, and more formal with agreements that have often been informal in the past. I'm just observing that it's a process, and a lot of people in the community may not like it.
Councillor Good.
So far, I've had no complaints on my end. This is nobody's said anything about it. I just got a question for Tara: is do they have to renew this every year and insurance on it every year?
So the agreement won't have an end term. It does have a couple of termination clauses about if they sell the property, it ends. If either party wants to end it, they can. But it will go on until someone ends it. But they will be required to pay $70 a year and provide their insurance every year. So as long as they do those 2 things and don't have a reason, like they're doing things that aren't permitted in the agreement, it'll just go on forever.
Any other comments?
Yes. Do we, if somebody doesn't pay their $17, say this year, do we check on that to see whether or not they've had it removed? And who does that? I know I don't.
So I haven't yet had an agreement terminate. So I'm not sure who the person will be that goes to make sure that whatever that agreement's in place for, will make sure that it's no longer happening, whether it's an access. We have license agreement for access. We have license agreements for docks, that someone will have to go out and make sure that the use is no longer there if the agreement is terminated.
Okay, so we have a question. It comes out of the discussion between the two of you. It says the annual fee is $75. Okay. I was saying 70 or 17 or something, but it says 75 in the agreement. And that's for both docks, right? Or not per dock? 75. Okay. All right. Any final comments, Deputy Mayor?
Just another comment. In this process, is there some kind of a net benefit to the township? Do we get more control over what they're allowed to do? Is there less possibility of litigation and an accident? What's our gain from this process?
So in this case, you'll see the liability insurance is the important part here. So it helps to remove some of that liability from the township because these docks are on township property. That's a big part of this.
In favor? Carried. Transitioning ownership of events at the Stargazing Pad and renaming it.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Transitioning Ownership of Events at the Stargazing Pad and Renaming. And the Council approves the Economic Development Task Force removing the Stargazing Pad as part of their mandate, and that the North Frontenac Astronomy Club will organize and operate most future astronomy-related events at the Stargazing Pad. And the Council authorizes the North Frontenac Astronomy Club to act in a similar role as the Township Community Hall Committees for the Stargazing Pad as arranged by the MCD. And the Council approves the renaming of the Stargazing Pad to the North Frontenac Astronomy Park and continue to refer to the entire township as the Dark Sky Preserve. And the Council approves the Dark Sky Experience as the official slogan of the North Frontenac Astronomy Park. And the Council approves of up to $300 to come from the Economic Development Reserve Fund to design 3 proposed logos for the North Frontenac Astronomy Park, which will then be presented to Council for consideration at a future meeting date. And that Council, upon selection of a new logo reflecting the name change at a future date, approves the new signage to be purchased to reflect this change at a cost of up to $1,700 to come from the Economic Development Reserve Fund.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Fowler.
Does this mean the Economic Development Committee will not be overseeing any more of this operation of Stargazing Pad?
That's true, that operations and programs there will not be part of the EDTF agenda in the future.
Sorry, I didn't see it myself. There's a Stargazing Pad down 41 Highway down at Merlin Lake. Do they charge for that? I thought somebody told me that they seen something in the paper that there's a charge for that a couple weeks ago.
I'm not aware if they charge a fee down there. I can definitely look into that, but I'm not aware if they do or not.
Deputy Mayor.
Part of the process of our renaming this one was to distinguish it from that one on Highway 41 and to emphasize that it's a better place to go.
It definitely is. I mean, this is a better place to go. It definitely is. Daniel?
I did see that, I think, on their social media that for an event they charged, but I believe that we had an event last, fall, our Stargazing event, and I think there was a fee for people. No fee for that? Okay. Thank you. So they don't charge for all of their events, but I do remember seeing that recently for one event.
Also good.
Sorry. Maybe we should start charging for it. Right now, it's the taxpayers picking up the money from it, and people coming in from wherever to go there. And like I said before, they come in the dark, they leave in the dark, and there's no money left here that I'm aware of too much. Not very seldom. There might be an Airbnb or something that I'm not aware of. Maybe we should start charging a fee for it at the gate. Wouldn't have to be a large fee, but nominal fee, because it is costing our taxpayer money.
Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Fowler.
The option discussed by the task force, a collection would be preferable to charging a fee. I don't know how successful that's been so far, but certainly at future scheduled events, there will be signage explaining why the program needs money, and please donate. That's the recommendation at this point of the task force.
Fowler.
One of the problems with trying to charge people to come in the night, and there are people that do that. I've been in there one time, and people were there, and they were looking at the stars, and they were leaving. And this is in the middle of winter, so it is active at night. There's no real way of collecting money. You'd have to set up a system for them to be able to deposit money or pay their fee if you're going to do that. I kind of like it the way it is. It's got a lot of popularity, and there's a lot of people that do use it at all hours, you know, usually at night, but yeah, they're there a lot. And I think that's right now, I think it's not a problem.
Councillor Good.
I don't mean just anybody coming in there during the night. I'm talking about the events. You wouldn't be able to do it for the rest of it. I know that. I realize that. That's a no-brainer.
Maybe the people that are running the North York Astronomy Club would be the ones that would want to charge a fee. That would be up to them, and it would help. I mean, we do charge fees for our community centers as well.
That's right. And those people there, they don't care because it's still coming out of the taxpayers' money. We have it's given to them. And that's what it's been all along. So if it's charged for events, that they have to come back into the pay for because there's going to be maintenance on this thing coming up with the buildings and whatever. Got to be.
They seem, the club seems to be absorbing that themselves for now. I've actually talked to, there isn't a lot of buildings there. I've actually talked to the head of the club and said, you know, why don't you charge? We did work the Stargazing Festival last fall, and it's only a major event like that where you would be able to control who comes in and be able to charge them. And if you charge them so much a car or so much an individual, it probably wouldn't be an issue. But may I suggest that we start with the Economic Development Task Force idea of putting a sign up looking for donations and so on, and then revisit this a year later and see if it generates any money. And, you know, and then if they do charge, is there a split? Does the club get some, or do we charge the club, or how does that work? Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, I've been to some conservation areas, like small parks that are part of Ontario that aren't monitored by anybody. Like there's nobody from Parks Ontario running the operations, but they do put out an envelope and request people to pay a donation or a certain amount of money. I've seen that in other locations. That might be something that might work. I think we should leave it up to the Economic Development Committee to scrutinize that.
Okay, sorry. Are there any other comments on this? So we have a motion on the floor. As it is, all in favor? And opposed? Carried. We now have the North Frontenac Astronomy Park.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Economic Development Week, May 8th to 12th, 2023. And the Council declares May 8th to 12th, 2023 as Economic Development Week. And the Council approves the Council declaration. And the Council instructs the Manager of Community Development to prepare and include copies of the Council declaration on the Township's website and social media. And the Council approves the proposed Economic Development Week promotional activities.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Bytown Motorcycle Association agreement request.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the manager community development's administrative report entitled Bytown Motorcycle Association Agreement Request. And the council approves in principle a draft agreement prepared by the manager community development with a proposed 2023 contribution of $6,500 as presented by the manager community development. And the council directs the manager community development to provide the draft agreement to the BMA for consideration, and the manager community development will bring back the signed agreement, if agreeable by BMA, to an upcoming regular meeting of council for signature.
Any comments? Councillor Fowler.
Just the Bytown Motorcycle Association's parent group is the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders. Is that the sticker or the identification that are going to be able to use that?
Yes, so very similar to our agreement with Ottawa Valley, they do use the upper group's permit, so it'll be the same. Our agreement will be with the Bytown Motorcycle Association, but their permit sticker will be the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders.
Well, one of the things I'd like to see is we're making resolutions with these other groups and everything else. Why not make the resolution with the upper group, Ontario Federation of Trail Riders or the Ontario Federation of ATVs? Because they're the ones that are putting their identity, it's their pass, and their insurance.
So it is their pass, but the insurance, the money, the funds that are provided to us comes from the lower group. So BMA offers the insurance. They offer the financial contribution, and it is specific to BMA riders. Yes, it is the OFTR sticker, but it is just the BMA riders that we're honoring.
Any other comments? This is one resolution I have a little difficulty with, but let's try it for a year and see what happens. Okay. In favor? Opposed? Carried. Manager community development. Apparently we need a new recreation waste shared truck replacement.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the manager community development's administrative report entitled 2007 Recreation Waste Shared Truck Replacement. And the council approves advancing the purchase of a truck to replace the 2007 recreation waste truck in 2023 at a maximum cost of $50,000. And that council instructs the treasurer to transfer the cost of the replacement vehicle split 50-50 between the recreational tangible capital asset reserve fund and the waste tangible capital asset reserve fund.
Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
I don't see a description, Brooke, of what this truck is. Like, that seems pretty high in repairs for a pickup truck. Is this bigger than a pickup truck?
It's not. It is just a regular pickup truck. It is a 07, so I think that's why things are starting to fail on it. We did do some significant work to it last year to the transmission, which is why we recommended trying to get another year out of it. And during the safety inspection, there's several issues wrong with it again this year.
So this is a 16-year-old truck right now. So my question is to Chief Kerhonen. You just purchased a pickup truck. What did we pay for it?
Mr. Mayor, through you, $56,000.
That was brand new.
Correct.
That was half ton.
Correct.
So I read the report that goes with this, and you're talking about a low mileage used truck. You got 16 years out of the last one. I mean, that's pretty good. So should there be some, should this be increased a little to consider maybe purchasing a brand new one? Or is the one with almost no kilometers on sitting around that we know about? Sale.
So the last one actually was a fire truck that sat in the fire hall for years and years and years. So we really wouldn't have gotten 16 years out of it had it not been sitting in a fire hall for years. So so that's the issue here. So this truck will be, I would assume, driven a lot more than, so that's why we were able to get so long out of this truck. So it's, so it was kind of at the time we were scheduled to buy a new truck or different truck for that, and we decided that at that time that one was being set for replacement, so we took that instead to save us money for a few years of buying a new truck. But it's caught up with us now, and that's why we are where we're at.
Mayor.
Just an uninformed comment. $45,000 for a used truck seems pretty close to $54,000 for a brand new truck. You do get some advantages in a brand new truck. You get a better warranty, probably get a couple more years. I assume somebody has done an internal analysis of why you'd want to use versus a new one. And final comment, if you wait a bit, you might be able to buy an electric one, and they're a lot less maintenance. Well, it would be.
So, what are the other comments on this, or are there any other additional comments? Councillor Hoodle.
So I guess this question is for the treasurer. Are we able to afford a new one?
Well, I mean, there is money in the TCA reserve funds. This was originally a used vehicle, so I think that's why we thought that we would replace it with a used. I think we're looking at something with very low kilometers. And for the use that it gets, we felt that was reasonable rather than asking for a new one.
I would agree that, well, first of all, I agree with Deputy Mayor, the electric one would be nice, but we're too early in that stage to do that. But I would be in agreement to increase the amount, so a new one was purchased.
Councillor Hermer.
How many kilometers approximately would be put on this yearly?
A guesstimation would be our recreation would put probably about 20,000 kilometers on it, and waste potentially 10,000, so maybe approximately 30,000 a year.
Over 7 years, you're over 200,000 kilometers. So, Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, I think it's a good investment. It'll be around for a while. As long as we look after it, it'll be okay.
Will be okay.
The vehicle.
No. Are we buying a new one or a used one?
Oh, to me, I think a new one would be better. But if this is what they've looked at, whatever they looked at, I'm okay with.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Good.
Really, if it's new or used, you still get the extended warranty on it. So you're getting that warranty as long as it doesn't have a lot of kilometers on it, low kilometers. I don't see anything wrong with the used one as well as the new one. So
I would prefer that this resolution was extended. The amount was increased to 56,000, but that staff be given the option of buying a new one or a used one, depending on what's available out there. So, we get something with 5 or 10 or 15,000 kilometers on, that's one thing. But if you can't, or the price is within a couple thousand of a new one, just opt for the new one and get the full warranty that goes with it. So are we good with that change? Yeah, we'll just let Tara write this up.
one more question.
Sure.
Is this going to be an F-150, F-250, or depending on what it's GM or Ford or whatever?
The requirement for the truck is only a 150, 1500, so it'll be either that, depending on what brand it is.
Dodge seems to have a lot on the lots, and there was an ad, and I saw it the other day. Ford is still selling 2022s. So, although I'm not so sure they were pickups, but they are.
I'm quite sure too, if they to get the rear end on them, they'll get better fuel economy too if they go with the 311s instead of the 355s.
You're beyond me. It's fine.
I think we have to be a bit careful not to micromanage here.
Yeah.
Just give a policy recommendation.
So you've asked about an increased value. I need a number for that. So I had heard 55 and 60. So I just need that.
Well, we set the fire the fire pickup replacement is 62,000. So if we went with 60,000 max, would that be okay? Yes.
And the amendment reads, and that council approves advancing the purchase of a truck to replace the 2007 recreation waste truck in 2023 at a maximum cost of $60,000. And the staff have discretion to purchase new or used depending on availability, value, and mileage if used.
Any comments? So I would like if this passes in a second, I would like the manager of community development, when this truck is purchased, to come back and tell us what you saw and what you purchased. Okay. In favor? Carried. Okay. Fees for planning applications. Did I miss one? Which one did I miss? Oh, the Yardark Road. Sorry, Yardark Road and the Coxville Bridge rehabilitation. My apologies.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Capital Construction Rehabilitation of Coxville and Yardark Road Bridges Budget Request. And that council approves accepting the low bid of $846,643.20, including unrecoverable HST from Delcon Constructors Limited, and that council authorizes the treasurer to transfer the additional cost of $45,588.27 from the Road Sustainability Tangible Capital Asset Reserve Fund.
Are there any comments? Deputy Mayor.
I'm just impressed as I drive around how many bridges you see with the concrete surface being torn up. I don't know enough about bridges to understand it, but I guess they're like trucks. They have a lifetime. They need to be rebuilt. And if you don't, you start to get structural failures. So I just wonder I look at the bridge on River Road there. It was, I think, rebuilt 2 years ago. What's the lifetime of that surface?
So as someone who used to build bridges with the first job of my career, what happens is concrete only works with reinforcing steel in it. So the salt from the road applications for de-icing and so on penetrates through the top portion of the concrete and starts eating away at the steel. The steel rusts, expands, pops the concrete off, and now the steel has no enclosure and has no protection, and it reduces in strength. So the answers to that, if you're building a new bridge, is increase the cover over top of the steel and the epoxy coat at great cost the top layer of reinforcing steel. So whatever salt does penetrate, then the steel has an additional protective layer. And it's never cheap because you do it in halves. And what's only worse are concrete parking garages. There are some in Toronto that are doing thousands of dollars every year. Councillor Hermer. Oh, I thought you had a comment. No, I'm sorry. I don't know. It depends on the original construction.
Just a quick question. I know Darwin's not here, but that's a narrow bridge to begin with. And as the mayor mentioned, we're only going to do one half at a time. Is that correct? We're not planning on closing any roads down there, are we?
Which bridge are you speaking about? Coxville. Pardon? Coxville? I don't think there's any plan to close the whole bridge. No, it would be. With traffic would continue, they would kind of do that. Yeah.
I looked at that this morning coming through, and there's enough room. It's the one on Arco Road that's the real problem. It's really narrow, and I don't think they can do it. So, okay. Any other comments? In favor? Carried. Now we'll talk about the new fees for planning applications. You are?
You can stay there. Take the mic. Okay. So Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Proposed New Fees for Planning Applications. And the council approves in principle the proposed fees as set out in the planning fees comparison chart, being attachment number 1 of the administrative report. And the council instructs the clerk to provide notice of a public meeting in the intent to pass a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw at a later date.
Any comments?
No, come on.
I have a comment.
Okay, because I was anticipating questions.
Thank you for coming, first of all. It's a long way from Kingston.
That's all right.
Or Glen Burnie. When I looked at the proposed fees, it looks like we were very close to South Frontenac. And Central, is Central Frontenac looking at redoing theirs as well? Because they seem to be, I would have thought we would have been more closer to Central's charges.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So everybody right now is looking at their planning fees. So South Frontenac they had done their own review and they just passed their new fees a couple of weeks ago. And then we've been helping all 3 of the other townships do a review. So we had provided sort of the research review, and then we had sort of made some suggestions that we gave to all the townships. And since then they have sort of been tweaking them. I think a couple of your numbers have come out a little bit lower than Central. Central just had their initial meeting on Tuesday. So they want some more information, some more research. But ultimately, it's really up to each township to decide, what is the appropriate fee in terms of being able to recover more of your costs, and not just costs from the planning service agreement you have with the county planning team, but also your costs internally that you have with your own staff time and all of your overhead that you have for those townships.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Fowler.
And it just seems like every time anybody wants to develop around in our county, and I'll include the county, is that the prices keep going up. It's getting more and more expensive. We got another resolution coming up that just upset me a lot because it's going to be very costly. And for a normal person that wants to improve their property, we're making it more difficult. They have to pay more.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. I mean, costs everywhere are going up. Your costs as a township are going up. And the reason for having another look at the planning fees is that most of the townships haven't done anything with their fees in some time. So I know Central, it's been 15 years. The Islands, it's been 14 years. And I understand the concern about making it difficult for a property owner to make improvements. But at the same time, if they don't bear the cost of the approval that they need for the project that they have chosen to do, the cost doesn't go away. It ends up then getting covered by your general levy. And I guess the question is, how much are you willing to have your general tax base bear the burden of development that benefits one property?
Councillor Ingles, Deputy Mayor Ingles.
I agree with Councillor Fowler that for the individual property owner trying to improve his property, it represents simply an increase in costs and more problems. But on the other hand, the purpose of municipal township council is to control and monitor development and to protect the landscape, in a sense, in a way that we were elected to do. And the only way we could do that is through a zoning bylaw, which has to be monitored, and costs are going up. And I agree that they should be borne by the property owner, not the taxpayer in general. So it's unfortunate, but that's one of our mandated jobs.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say too that we're looking at a number of different ways to try and find some efficiencies. So our director was here last fall and talked to you about the community planning permit system that we're going to be starting, getting underway, which is going to be able to combine a number of those planning permissions. And some of the minor ones will be able to be dealt with at the staff level and not have to go through a formal, meeting process and be put on an agenda, which will hopefully also reduce some costs for the township and therefore the applicant. We're probably coming back in the next couple of months to have a conversation with you about thinking of doing delegated authority for undisputed consents, again, saving applicants some time in terms of their process. And then this is just the other side of the coin. In addition to the efficiencies, we also need to look at the cost of the service being provided. So it's not the only thing we're working on. It's just the one that I'm here to talk about today.
So what we just mentioned, that will make things hopefully easier for the applicant and so on, but it isn't going to make it any cheaper because they're still going to have to get this report or this analysis done or whatever. And I guess true. It is what it is. But are there any other comments or any questions? Now's your chance. Okay. In favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Zoning bylaw update. You might want to just sit right where you are, just in case. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Jenny's done more of the detailed research, so I'll let her trade.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be resolved that Council receives for information the planning report from staff dated April 19th, 2023 regarding the proposed housekeeping amendment to zoning bylaw number 5519. And the Council directs staff to undertake the next phase of the review and housekeeping amendment update to zoning bylaw 5519 by scheduling a public meeting in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Are there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
I'm still looking for it, but here it is. It's on page 106 of my agenda package. Add loft above a garage and sleep cabin to Hamlet, rural, and limited service rural. I would like to see rural cooperative included in that group.
Okay, we can look at doing that. I was trying to update it and include the uses throughout wherever there's waterfront properties, so we can do that.
Are there any other questions, comments? When I went through this, I came across, because our property is zoned recreational commercial, and I talked to Tara and we resolved. She very nicely had patience with me, and we resolved that query yesterday. The other one is, and she's also resolved this, but it's just kind of a pet peeve. We have an individual or an applicant south of Snow Road on Highway 519 or Road 519 that had a property. 519 divided it. They separated it into two. They sold their house in this half of the property they built here. And this is something like 30 some acres. And now they want to build a 3-season cottage because they have dual citizenship or something like that. And they want to spend more time in the US. So with their grandkids, and so they want to sell this part. The cost of one of the tests that are required is $9,000 because they're within 400 or 500 meters of a sand pit that is pretty much played out, but the sand pit is the aggregate source and it's licensed. And I'm going like, why can't we do this? This is just ridiculous. And it's a provincial law. So what do we do? If you got some magic wand, you can wave and change things around so we can do things like this.
Unfortunately, we do have to follow all provincial regulations. So if that is what the requirements are under the Aggregate Act, then that is what we have to do.
I can deal with the 229 feet from an active pit, but when it comes to air quality sampling in the middle of North Frontenac with an abandoned pit or an almost abandoned pit, then I have an issue, but it is what it is. Anything else? Okay, in favor of the opposed? Gary. Natural heritage reviews.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that Council receives for information the Clerk Planning Manager's administrative report entitled Natural Heritage Reviews Consultant Estimates.
Any comments? Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, this is another similar sort of thing that we were just speaking about, where the province has declared all waterways and everything else as a natural heritage. And as a result of that, then they got rid of the Conservation Authority's power to mandate this sort of thing. And what has happened, I'm looking at these prices and everything that's gone way up through the roof. There's another big cost that because the province had made a decision one way or the other that you know, to get somebody to look at your waterfront, if you're going to be doing something to the waterfront, whether it's a minor variance or a zoning bylaw or something like that, and you're going to have one of these people look at it. It's just very, very expensive. Just out of way too much. And I was hoping that maybe we could, at the county level, maybe get somebody trained to do this kind of a job and share the cost, but somebody could do the same thing that the conservation authorities were doing.
Is there a move, I can't remember, to actually look at that? I thought there was.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just reviewed a draft memo yesterday. So yes, the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Mr. Gallivan, has, along with myself, been doing some research into costs with the assistance of Tara, because she had already gotten some quotes. So they have put together a memo that is going to all of the CAOs, I believe next week, I think the CAOs are meeting, that compare some of the costs. So the cost of hiring a consultant is considerably more than what the Conservation Authority used to charge. The Conservation Authority used to charge like $450 to $550 for an application. Like the lowest cost we've gotten from a consultant is around $2,000. So it is considerably more. So I believe that there's a memo going to next week with respect to some suggestions for sort of the short term and the long term. I think the long term option is that the county try and bring in a biologist in house that can help all 4 townships. But I don't think that that's necessarily the short term option. So we'll see exactly what comes out of the CAO's meeting next week.
Thank you. Sorry, Councilor Fowler.
Curiosity, what are the requirements of this biologist? I mean, do they get a master's or do they have to get a doctorate, or what level of knowledge do they have? And are there other people that would have this that might take on a job like this, or somebody that already works for the county or the townships can step in and do this sort of job?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we don't have anybody at the county that currently has the degree and the skill set to be a biologist or an ecologist. I don't believe North does. I don't think any of the other townships do. So we would be looking for somebody with that specific skill set. It would be somebody likely that has a university degree, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a master's or a doctorate degree. It would just be somebody with that degree of specialization that has done at least some work in that field.
So the CAO and I met with MPP John Jordan, and this topic was raised. And we made the point that it's okay if you are around the GTA or you are a large municipality that has your own staff, but when you are in a rural setting, we don't have those luxuries. And what they did for a Made in Toronto or Made in a Golden Horseshoe resolution or bylaw or law really doesn't apply to us. So he has said that he will take that back as well, but he said it's always a long road, so we'll see what happens. But he's aware of it anyway. So right now, it's business as usual for us, or we're figuring out what business as usual is. So it is what it is. So anything that can be done centrally that may reduce our costs, that's fine. That's a great idea, but here's where we are today. Anybody else? Councillor Hoodle.
This is really unfortunate, and I agree with Councillor Fowler. This cost is put back to the applicant. And when you compare the cost of the MDCA, I don't understand what the provincial government was doing when they took the powers away, and it's unfortunate.
That was our exact point to the MPP. They were sympathetic, but it's a politician. So I guess maybe I shouldn't say that, or I can say that. Anyway, is there anybody else wants to comment on this? Councillor Fowler.
I have a question. Is this resolution for information only at this stage? Okay, thanks.
In favor? Carried. Economic Development Task Force.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the notes of a meeting of the Economic Development Task Force dated April 17th, 2023.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Notice of motion for council consideration for inclusion on the next meeting.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives a notice of motion from Councillor Hermer requesting a dedication to the late Jerry Martin, former councillor and deputy mayor, for his public service, and that council approves of discussing this matter at the next council meeting.
Comments? Councillor Hudel.
I think this is a great idea. It'd be really nice if we had a policy though, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Would it be okay, Councillor Hermer, if we included former Councillor Perry as well in this for the discussion?
I'd like to make a comment about that. I think Councillor Perry received a far greater dedication for his services than any of us here will ever hope to receive. I mean, after all, he was paid for over a year for non-attendance here. So I think that he was adequately acknowledged.
May I suggest that if we leave this particular resolution with Jerry or about Jerry Martin, and if someone wants to do one for Fred Perry, then we bring another resolution forward. Councillor Hudel.
So I wasn't part of council when that happened, but I mean, if you're going to do one, we have to do two. And I think we do it at the same time. I understand your point, but
I'm just trying to make things easier.
I think it'd be easier if we did it at the same time.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, if we're going to do two, we should do three, because we lost a mayor back in 2014. We've had that dedication, you're telling me. Well, in that case, all we're doing here is agreeing to talk about this at the next meeting. I don't think we should get into any details about what it might contain.
Yeah. Councillor Good, you have. Okay. Okay. So, in favor? Carried. So council's verbal reports. I actually did one up. If I can find it. Sorry. Of course. Lo and behold. Sorry, folks, just give me a second here. Anyway, so we have had two meetings at the county, a regular meeting, and then we've had a special meeting. And April 19th meeting, the county continues to negotiate with their unionized staff. We've had presentations from the Verona ATV Club. They're looking to partner with us to do some, us being the county, to do some maintenance on the KNP trail in that particular area. We've asked that the entire trail be monitored because it does go through some other municipalities, and it does go very close to some houses. There's a discussion, they want to extend ATV use on the trail south to Hardington. No decision on that, and they want to where the trail meets some of the paved areas that creates a lot of disturbance. They want to actually pave back 50 feet or so each side, which is a good idea. They had a series of proclamations. April 16th to 22nd was Volunteer Week. National Day of Mourning was April 28th. Emergency Preparedness Week, the same as ours, May the 7th to the 13th. Nursing Week, May 8th to the 14th. Economic Development Week, May 8th to the 12th. Personal Support Worker Day, May the 19th. Paramedic Services Week, Diversity in Paramedicine, May 21st to May 27th. We've had discussions about what we're going to do with Fairmont Home. Every major municipality has to have a long-term care facility. Ours is Fairmont Home. It is a 128-bed unit or facility, and apparently the operation sweet spot is 160 beds, and we have been granted an additional 32 to make the 160. Now the question becomes, do we make use of that additional 32 beds and expand the existing building, or do we build an entire new building? The costs are substantial, like something like $75 million to build a new home on property we already own. So that's, stay tuned, that's a major issue that's coming up. We did have, and some of you attended, we had presentations on the Cell Gap project and on the 7,000 new homes over the next 7 years from EORN, the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, and the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. And then we had a special meeting on what to do with the expansion to the corporate offices. It was originally $4.49 million. That office facility is shared with Cataraqui Conservation Authority. The building has lots of renovations, and then it has an extension to the south and an extension to the east. And when they did the test holes for ground conditions, they hit a large boulder that they assumed was bedrock, because everything else in the area is bedrock. Only it wasn't. To get to the south side, you have to go through where the east addition is going to be. So they began excavating on the south, and the ground is at 20% capability of what's required to support the building. So they dug down another 4 feet, and nothing has improved. But we said stop. And it was about $260,000 just to reinforce the footing, which would work, but the possibility of long-term damage exists. And then who knows what happens on the east side? Do we hit the same problem? So what we elected to do was take this piece of the building contract, discontinue it, close it down, get a credit, whatever we can for it, strengthen an area of the building so that we could take a third story if appropriate. The cost of the extra steel and the cost of that additional room on top is about $50,000 or $60,000 more than the credit we would get here. But all along, we have what's happening on the east side. If you want to know about it, Frontenac News has a decent article on it, which pretty much captures what the issues are. But it was like an 1.5-hour meeting, and there's big dollars on the table. So, any questions about this? Thank you. You were there.
I just want to include that if they were going to build this brand new Fairmont Home, they were thinking about repurposing the original Fairmont Home for other, like for housing and things like that. That was just one of the other things that was thrown in. But it is very, very expensive.
Very expensive. So, Councillor Hoodle, North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance. Well, that's me. Sorry, I haven't met. I apologize. I was thinking of you being on that association alliance. My apologies. Councillor Good. Thank you. Councillor Regent.
No, the Lakelands Family Health Team, we won't meet again until probably end of May or end of June, and looking forward to the Lake Association meetings.
Councillor Hoodle.
So we had a MVCA board meeting on April 17th. Good meeting. We talked about our responsibility as board members and what that means. We're also given a 10-year capital plan update, which has increased from 2020 by $5.2 million due to inflation, the dam on Kashwakamak, and fleet, because they will be going to electric vehicles in the near future, and that means charging stations. So they want to increase the capital levy by 2%, which means over 4 years, $1,388 to North Frontenac. That's not a big amount, but it is an amount that we'll have to take care of. Then they talked about the sale of the KMP Trail to Lanark County for $1, and that they will be coming to the other counties to do the same. So there's been talk about that. We also had a Committee of Adjustment meeting this week on Monday, and it was very interesting. And the Committee of Adjustment would like to include tent trailers in the RV bylaw. So they've asked me to bring that forward to council for information right now, I guess. And Lake Association meetings are starting. There's an AGM on July 22nd that the president of Buckshot Lake Association has invited me to. I'm the president of Buckshot Lake Association.
You would have invited yourself?
Yeah, that's it. I invited myself.
On that, I have an association request for Shavamika Lake and now Malcolm Lake. So
You said Shabamika? I haven't received anything on that.
Okay. You want to come? I'll let you know afterwards. It's the end of May. So, yes.
So just as far as Lake Associations go, I thought we made an agreement months ago that the councillors would attend the Lake Association meetings. So I understand that some associations would want the mayor there, and that's fine. But I think at the same time, when you get an invitation like that, you should be inviting the councillor in that ward. So if it's in Ward 1, it would either be Councillor Regent or Councillor Good. So I think as councillors, we would appreciate that.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You want to go to Malcolm Lake? So who's got Malcolm Lake? Both of you. Okay. Okay. And then Deputy Mayor Ingles, Ward 3.
Nothing to report on the Lake Associations since the last meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So, where does that take us down to? We're taking we're going to the, I lost that when I went from one thing to another. We still haven't got that yet. All right. A couple more portfolio. Did I miss Councillor Hermer?
Nothing to report. I didn't even get invited by Councillor Hudel.
I noticed that. But of course, Councillor Fowler made sure that I noticed that too, eh? Okay, so you have to introduction into that one. Or do we go into the closed? No, then we do that, then we do this, then the closed session, right? So, yes, please.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaws that have been circulated to all members of council. Bylaw 3023 to establish portion of Cruise Road, River Road, and Strathaddam Road as highways, and that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor?
Could I say something? I have some information on my portfolio to give council. I was passed over, and I don't think council gave anything either.
Okay. Councillor Fowler.
I'll yield to Councillor Hermer first.
Counselor. Raise that here. Counselor Fowler. Go ahead.
Yeah, just Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. We had a meeting on April 3rd. We had sent a letter off to the Ontario Federation of ATVs regarding that we would like to have more transparency when we negotiate with them in the future. Our next meeting is May 11th. And if I have nothing on the North Frontenac Trails enhancement, nothing on the more to add to the county business. The Lake Association Ward 3 haven't been contacted or know of any meetings that are coming up at this time. Also, if I may, because I am on the SALT committee, and the SALT committee, that's a Central and North Frontenac SALT committee, is we had a presentation yesterday. If I can add that to my portfolio,
you just did.
Yeah, well, is everybody okay with it?
Strike that from the proceedings right now. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that we had down at Charbert Lake at the Legion yesterday, we had a really good presentation put on by Service Canada, Sylvia Hogan, and she was talking about the Canada Pension Plan and also the old age security program. Also, there was another presentation put on by the OPP. Our new unit commander, Jamie Davis, he did one on frauds and scams. There was about, for the whole group, there was probably about 15 people there other than the staff. Our next presentation is going to be in Snow Road. It'll be on May 26th, and the topic will be ticks and Lyme disease. That's all I have to go.
Thank you. I apologize for losing track of where I was on here. It's just too much paperwork and too many computer programs.
I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
That must be just from earlier this morning when you missed coming here.
I made it all on time. Okay. So, do we have anyone online? So, because it's an opportunity for the members of the public to make any comments. There's no one in the council chamber. So, Councilor Good.
Yes, I was asked, I don't think he's online today, but the waste sites rush free weekend on May 24th weekend from that last ice storm we had. This guy is a senior, and he asked me to, if he wasn't couldn't get online, that we would consider a free rush drop off for that.
Sure.
So actually, that the funding we got from the M&R, we actually will be opening up our waste sites to that for the whole year to free, because we're going to have it grinded, if you recall, from the funding. So yes, that will be coming. We just talked about that on Tuesday. So within the next few weeks, they'll be working on that, getting it advertised, and we'll get that open to people. So absolutely, if you want to get back to them and say that's coming for the whole year. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
So just to clarify, Corey, that's going to start in a couple of weeks, you believe?
Yeah, we're going to get it advertised. So I think we decided we're going to do Plevna, Cloyne, 506, and Mississippi. So those three waste sites will have that available.
So I don't know if anyone online wishes to speak. You can use the raise hand feature.
While we're waiting just for information, and it goes back to my report and the Lake Associations, I have a meeting scheduled with Bruce Moore. John asked if he could attend, but he's unable to. So it's just Bruce and I meeting over breakfast someday this week.
No comments from online.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take a recess now from the regular meeting, and we'll adjourn into closed meeting. And the closed meeting will start at 10:45, so you have a 5-minute break. Oh, yes, sorry.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be resolved that council retires to closed session at 10:39 a.m. to adopt minutes of closed meeting dated April 6, 2023, and to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, specifically with regards to seniors housing.
So welcome back, everyone, to our open meeting. Our closed meeting is completed, and we have nothing at this time to report on. The next item is the confirmatory bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that bylaw 3123, being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held April 28, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
In favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 11:37 a.m. until May 19th, 2023, or at the call of the chair.
Any comments? No one wants to stay longer. In favor? Cancel. Or sorry, carried. Sorry. Thank you, everybody.